And the next step for us is going to be doing the layout for our leg pieces. This is going to include marking the holes that we're going to drill on our 4 legs, also marking our half lap joints on our legs as well as our leg crossbar pieces. So to start, we're going to start with the legs, and we're going to start with marking our 4 holes that we're going to drill. So to do this, we're going to use a combination square that we're going to set to a distance of 10 millimeters. And then we're going to mark one distance for 10 millimeters from the end of each piece. And then we're going to find the center on that piece by setting this to about 8 or 7 millimeters. And we'll mark from both sides so that we can find center. So again, to start, we are going to set our distance to 10 millimeters. So I've got 10 millimeters showing from the end of this combination square. Then you can take a sharp pencil and mark from one end on each of your leg pieces. And again, these should be square, so it shouldn't matter what side you're using. But if for some reason they're not square, make sure that all of these are the same height. So once you found that, then you can mark 10 millimeters from the end of each piece. By just drawing a line, and do that on all 4 pieces. And after you have all 4 marked, you're then going to find center on those pieces. So adjust your combination square to between 7 and 8 millimeters. So I have mine set to 7 right now. And to find center, all you have to do is measure from each side. That way, if it's not quite perfect, you'll know the gap between the lines is the center mark. So for the first side, make sure that this is nice and flat against my leg piece here. I drew my first line, and then I'll just flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. And for me, there is a little bit of a gap in between. So I know that the gap is actually the center mark. So when I go to use the awl to push the hole that I'm going to drill, I can know that the place I want to press that awl is right in between those 2 lines. So I'm going to continue and do that on the 4 other legs. And now I have a line that is 10 millimeters from the end, as well as a center mark on that line. Now I'm going to use an awl to lightly indent a hole or lightly indent a mark that we're going to use to later drill out these holes. So take extra time to make sure this is nice and lined up, right in between the lines at the 10 millimeter mark, and then give it a light tap. And continue for all 4 legs. Once all 4 of your legs have an awl mark on them, the next step is before we drill that out, we're going to use that mark, the center punch mark from the awl, to draw the round over that we're going to later sand onto our leg end pieces. It's going to be much easier to do this now than later. So I'm going to take the time to set my dividers to 10 millimeters or the same distance from the end of my piece. So I can draw a round over. So if I was to line up the point on my dividers, I just want to line the pencil mark up with the top of my leg. And then I'm going to just draw in a round over. And now I'm going to do that on all 4 legs. And now I have the round over drawn on all 4 of them. And the last step for the layout for our leg pieces is we're going to draw where we're going to end up cutting away a groove to make a half lap joint so that our leg can meet our leg crossbar piece. So they're going to have matching cutaways on both sides. So to do this, I'm going to use a combination square, set it to 74 millimeters. So I have it set to 74 millimeters here. I'm going to draw a line on the bottom of the piece, furthest from the hole. So if you look, the hole is on this side. I want to take my measurement from the opposite side. Make sure that it's nice and snug, 90 degrees up with the end. I'm going to draw a line that's 74 millimeters away. I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing. And then one more time. So at the end of this, you should have 3 lines that if you turn it, they all meet up. And they start at the side the hole is drilled, or will be drilled. Next, you're going to take one of those offcut pieces that you saved. So it might be small like this, or it might be a bit longer. Either way, you're going to then use this offcut piece as a spacer so that you know we're drawing lines that are the exact same width as our legs. So you're going to again butt up our combination square to the end, and then horizontally you're going to place that spacer against the combination square, and you're going to use that to trace another line that is going to be further away. So you're going to do the same thing on the same 3 sides. And you should now have 2 lines that wrap around on 3 sides. Next, what we're going to do is we need to find a halfway mark on these 2 sides that are on the same side as the holes that we're going to drill. So to do so, you're going to change your combination square to about 7 or 8 millimeters. And then you're going to draw a line from one side, flip the combination square over, and draw the same line on the opposite side. So if you can see what I'm doing here, draw that line across. Then I'll flip it to the other side, draw the same line. And it looks like my lines match up, so I know that this is actually halfway on this side. So this is the side with the hole drilled in it. I'm going to flip it all the way over and draw the same halfway marks on the other side. And now I have lines that wrap all the way around with 2 halfway lines on these sides. And now what I'm going to do is from the side with no halfway line drawn in it, I'm going to draw a big X because this is the material we want to remove. And then on the other 2 sides, I want to draw smaller X's on the side that's touching this X. This is just a visual reminder that we're going to end up removing this material out of here, and we want to make sure we're doing it from the correct side. So we're removing the material here, all of it along the bottom, and then halfway up the other side. So this is going to help us set up our crosscut sled later and make sure we do this properly. So you can do the same steps on all 4 of your leg pieces. Now we have all of the layout on our leg pieces finalized. We have a hole marked from one end, that's 10 millimeters from one end with a round over drawn. And then from the other end, we have a half lap joint that is 74 millimeters from the bottom. So we have a line that's 74 millimeters. Then we used our cutoff as a spacer block, drawn our secondary line. And then we have halfway marked on one side with the hole. This side we will be taking away all the material, and on the opposite side that will also have the hole on it, we have that halfway. So we have that drawn on all four pieces. We're ready to move on to layout for the leg crossbar pieces. So the layout for the leg crossbar pieces is quite simple. We're just marking a spot on both ends of the pieces that is going to accept one leg to be for that half lap joint. So it has to be the same width as the leg. So to do so, we can take our leg and we can use our combination square to set that as the same height. So we can just adjust it to the same width, which should be about 16 millimeters, but to use this as a reference is a foolproof way to make sure it's the same. So now that we have that set, we can use that to transcribe marks on the ends of both of our pieces. And then we can do that on 3 sides around again. So we can start on one side, make sure it's nice and flush, and then do it on 3 sides. And now once we have our 3 lines drawn on, with the side that is touching 2 of the other lines, so I have no line on this side, I have a line, line, line. In that middle spot, I want to draw a big X, because that's the material we're going to remove. And then on the same side of the other one, draw a big X. And now, just like before, we want to find our halfway mark on the other ends, because we're gonna end up machining away a little bit from this side and a little bit from this side, so that these will end up matching and they'll be flush once they've been machined. So to do so, again, you already know this step. We're gonna adjust our combination square to about 7 or 8 millimeters. And then we're gonna draw our halfway mark on both sides. And again, we're gonna draw that line and flip the piece over and draw it from the opposite side, so that we know that it's exactly halfway. Because if you do it from both sides, you know it'll be halfway. From the first side. And so we've done it on one side. We have our big X here. We're going to do it on the opposite side as well. And now do that on your second leg crossbar piece. And now that we have our big X's on one side and our half lines drawn on the other 2 sides connecting, from wherever the big X is touching, I want to draw a small X on that side, just as a visual reminder of what material we're trying to take away. And now we have the layout for our leg crossbar pieces all done. We have enough for one leg to completely sit in here, which is going to be about 16 millimeters. We have that marked with a big X, and then the small sides halfway across with small X's. And that concludes the layout on our leg pieces.